Hell hath no fury like a federal district judge who's now been affirmed by the United States Supreme Court. Don't F with her. Don't F with Judge Xinis in Maryland. But the Department of Justice and Trump administration, they feel like that's a strategy. Let's take on a federal judge. Let's ignore her orders. Let's ignore the United States Supreme Court's order to facilitate the return of Armando Abrego Garcia with post haste because he's been rotting in an El Salvadoran prison for 27 days. I'm Michael Popok. You're on Legal AF. Let's get down to what's just happened because we just had a hearing in front of a judge who just got affirmed by the United States Supreme Court about her approach to due process, to constitutional rights, her finding that Armando Abrego Garcia was illegally deported and removed by the Trump administration, and her not allowing the Trump administration to relitigate that which the Supreme Court has already ruled, or to slow foot or foot drag about his return, came to a head because the Judge Xinis, Paula Zenis, last night, she was reading the wire the way we were. And as soon as she got her hands on the Supreme Court's decision in her favor, affirming her, confirming her, supporting her at 7 p.m. last night, she dashed off a couple of orders of her own. And that led to this hearing and the Trump administration already flouting her rules, thumbing their nose at her. This is the judge of the Trump administration, the Department of Justice, behind her back, not in court, of course, has called a leftist, a Marxist, an activist, all the ists. You know what she is? She's a confirmed, affirmed federal judge that the Supreme Court said, 9-0, you're doing the right thing, and we support you. Now, loaded for bear, turbocharged, she wrote an order. The only question the Supreme Court had was, what did she mean by the word effectuate? They liked facilitate. They questioned effectuate, meaning she ordered that the U.S. government facilitate the return of Abrego Garcia and to effectuate it. They said, the Supreme Court said, you can facilitate. We like that. We like that. Due process part, you wrote in your order, all good. What's effectuate? And if effectuate, because I guess their fear is effectuate could be sending in SEAL Team 6 to knock down a wall in the prison and, and get them out that way. And they're not willing to go that far. Facilitate, maybe when the dictator president of El Salvador, Bukele, is visiting with Donald Trump this weekend in Washington, maybe over a cup of, a plate of finger food, lady fingers, they can talk about getting him out. So she corrected or clarified her order. And she ordered a couple of things late last night. She said, you are to facilitate using all necessary means and steps to get him out. All necessary, not even appropriate, not even reasonable, to get him out. Now, because we have an illegally imprisoned person in El Salvador, and it has to be now. And I want to know the steps that you've taken, you already tried, and the steps you're proposing to try. And I want it in my courtroom at 9:30 in the morning. That was this morning. The Trump administration said, we can't get it to you by 9:30 in the morning. We need till the 15th of April. We got to read the Supreme Court decision. Just came out. The judge says, sorry. She wrote back in another order. She said 4 pages of a Supreme Court decision. It wasn't. It was 1 page of the 9-0 decision affirming everything that Judge Xinis did, except for the word effectuate that they wanted clarity on, but said she was right in every other way. Get the guy back, right? Facilitate his return and give him the due process that our Constitution demands. That's the United States Supreme Court speaking with one voice, 9-0. You might have heard there was a statement made by Sotomayor and Jackson and Kagan joining. It wasn't a dissent. All it was further reinforcement for Judge Xinis to do your job, to get the facts that you need, and hold the government accountable. And that's what she did. So the judge said, no, I deny your request to the 15th or 16th of April. I'll give you another 2 hours. 11:30 came and went this morning. And they didn't comply, as I said in a recent hot take. Meaning what? Meaning they're not in compliance with federal court order leading to the 1 o'clock hearing. At the 1 o'clock hearing, brand new lawyer for the Department of Justice. Why? Because they fired Mr. Ruveni, who had been the lawyer, but who told the truth. His crime, and that's why he got fired by Todd Blanche, the number 2 at the Department of Justice, formerly Donald Trump's criminal defense lawyer. His crime, Mr. Ruveni, he told the truth. I almost said he lied. He told the truth. He told the truth as he's obligated to do under the rules of ethics for lawyers, to be candid to the tribunal. Even when you also have the obligation to be a zealous advocate, you got to do it with truth. And he told the truth that Mr. Abrego Garcia had a green card, and more importantly, had an order of protection from an immigration judge, U.S., from 2019, an order preventing his removal to El Salvador in particular, because he'd be killed. And Ruveni admitted that the government not only was there an order, but the Trump administration knew about the order, as did Immigration, Customs and Enforcement, ICE, and they put him on the plane and sent him to El Salvador anyway. That confession of an illicit act was the driver for Judge Xinis to enter her preliminary injunction and block and force the return of Mr. Abrego Garcia, and drove the 9-0 decision at the Supreme Court. You know how hard it is to get these 9 together? They all got together because of what happened to Abrego Garcia. Now, we go to the hearing. New lawyer shows up. Drew Ensign, replacing Mr. Ruveni, who was fired for telling the truth. He was being insubordinate because he told the truth. Now, you might be thinking, don't I know Drew Ensign? You do, because he was the guy that was the lawyer advocating in front of Judge Jeb Boasberg about the Alien Enemies Act at the other, in the same courthouse in a different courtroom a week or 2 ago. Now, that case has sort of died because the Supreme Court took the case away from Judge Boasberg. But Ensign was the one that Boasberg told out loud, tell me the truth. It's the only thing you have as an advocate. Don't lie to me about when the planes took off and if they took off before or after my order grounding the planes to El Salvador, same place. So Ensign, fresh off his stint of being roasted by Judge Boasberg a week or so ago at a hearing, is now the new lawyer for the Department of Justice in front of Judge Xinis. But the results are the same. First of all, he decided, or the Department of Justice decided for him, that he was going to F around with the judge about the Supreme Court decision. The Supreme Court decision was 2 paragraphs. The only reference to deference to the executive branch and the president is when they said, if you're going to continue to use the word effectuate, be careful, because you have to be respectful of the power of the executive branch when it comes to conducting foreign affairs. The judge solved the problem. She pulled the pin. She pulled out the word effectuate and just said, I'll stay with facilitate, which the Supreme Court was fine for. The only other thing that was a quote unquote win for Donald Trump, but it really wasn't, is the fact that Chief Justice Roberts, for about 7 or 8 days to allow the time for briefing, entered an administrative stay that blocked for a week her original deadline of a week ago Monday to return Abrego Garcia to the United States by midnight. But they conflated those 2 things together and had Drew Ensign say, Judge, you can't order new deadlines. They said that's against our powers in foreign affairs. Judge said, what are you talking about? The deadline that passed is the one they were talking about. Foreign affairs is a whole different issue, and I've eliminated that with my reference to facilitate, not effectuate. In fact, I have to set new orders. I've been instructed on remand to get to the bottom of what happened, to get the facts of what's been tried, and to facilitate his return. And I'll do it from my end as a judge. Oh, we just don't interpret it the way you do, the United States Supreme Court ruling. That's going to be their new, we just don't interpret the Supreme Court the way you do, Judge. I don't care what Drew Ensign's interpretation is. A federal judge made an order in 2 lines about facilitating and taking all necessary steps to get him back. And they're arguing, we don't have to because we can ignore your order. Good luck. Talk about picking your losing battles. If they try to go back to the United States Supreme Court and ask for further clarification or instruction on what they meant in their order, I'm not sure they even get it, because the Supreme Court will be like, it's clear, read the order, or we're denied on your request for reconsideration. But even if they do, the Supreme Court is going to affirm once again, maybe in even stronger tones, what they affirmed with Judge Xinis the first time. I mean, how many times do you want to keep going to the well? How many times is the Trump administration going to want to get hit with two ends of the stick? So I wouldn't do that if I were them. And I would already support and uphold the dignity of our system of justice and get the guy home and stop trying to die on this hill about procedure. They were wrong. They admitted they were wrong. Nobody believes the Department of Justice at all. The Supreme Court does not credit at all their argument at the last minute that Mr. Roveni's confession that the Trump administration violated the rights over the court order of Mr. Abrego Garcia. Nobody believes that that was a lie. The Supreme Court did not credit that at all, despite the fact that they tried. Now you got a federal judge, and she said, I'm going to be issuing an order any moment now. The next day or so, I'll have the actual written order. I'll do another hot take. But here's the takeaway. The judge did not believe the Department of Justice lawyer. She's upset with him in a way that only a federal judge can be. She believes he's misreading the Supreme Court order intentionally. It is clear on its face. She's not worried about the Supreme Court because they completely upheld her on this. She's going to issue an order that makes them do daily updates about their efforts to get him back. And if she doesn't like the responses, we're going to start looking at contempt proceedings. That's how judges work. You have an order. You have to have an order. They're like, no orders, judge. Orders, that violates. No, you have to. This is how a judge regulates and administers justice, through orders. You violate the order, then you got a contempt hearing. You violate that, you got a finding of contempt. And then we move from there, maybe to the point where maybe Drew Ensign has to go to the federal detention center or the jail in the basement for a little while. Bring your toothbrush to the next hearing, Drew Ensign. I'll cover it all right here on Legal AF. Take a moment. And I mean, I'm not going to beg, but we could use the subscriber base to increase just a tad. We're trying to get to 1 million before in the next few months. We're at 531,000 right now. Help us get to 600,000 before April is over. That would be fantastic. And it matters, not because I'm an egoist. It's because the bigger we are, the more our voices collectively are heard. The algorithms, make us more important. And get us into more feeds, which spreads the word, because we're talking truth to each other first before we speak truth to power. We got to unite here on Legal AF. So until my next reporting, I'm Michael Popok. In collaboration with the Midas Touch Network, we just launched the Legal AF YouTube channel. Help us build this pro-democracy channel where I'll be curating the top stories at the intersection of law and politics. Go to YouTube now and free subscribe at Legal AF MTN. That's at Legal AF MTN.